Alright, welcome to episode 1 of The End of Everything, and I promise that's not quite as morbid as it sounds. The idea of this podcast is for us to explore latest technology and trends from the perspective of two digital artists, which are us, Ewan and I, attempting to make a small business that can A, keep us fed, and B, push these technologies and mould them into something that's actually going to be of value to people. I'm Ben.
And I'm Ewan.
And today we're asking the question, is this the end of miniatures? And by miniatures we mean sort of scale models, any sort of physical models, that sort of thing. But before that, since this is in episode 1, let's introduce ourselves a little more, and because I know you're just sort of eagerly wanting to know about our personal lives. I'm Ben. I studied as an industrial designer, which is far too long ago now. It's probably about, what is it?
No, it was like 8 years ago or something, is it? No, 5 years ago?
Is it really? Okay.
No, I don't know.
So we studied here in Wellington, New Zealand, and what we've been doing since is working in the film industry. So I've been working at Weta Workshop for the last 5 years or so, working my way up through there, so doing a lot of working with prop making, so physical props, and then moving into more 3D technology, which is digital modelling, 3D printing, CNC machining, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I also studied with Ben at Massey University as well, so we're in the same class. And then I've since worked at Weta as well, doing similar things, and also I worked in London for 2 years as an architectural model maker, which kind of brings us onto our topic, I guess. And just about what place do miniatures hold in the world of architecture, but also in film now, I guess.
Yeah, so I suppose we wanted to kind of explore this topic from a couple of angles here. So this is miniatures are things that both you and I have been involved with quite a lot from different avenues, and I suppose we want to talk a little bit first about the history of miniatures. Starting off, miniatures were essentially the only way to sort of communicate a space or a building, or anything along those lines.
I think it's interesting actually. I remember going to a castle in the UK, and they'd have a miniature of the castle.
Yeah.
So people clearly have been using this sort of method for millennia. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember seeing in the museum there's some incredible miniatures of Napoleon's armies, and I guess it's almost like that role-playing board game sort of stuff, they were actually using miniatures on a map to
plan their invasions
and stuff, really peaceful, nice, wholesome stuff.
Yeah.
I suppose in the lack of any sort of digital technology or way of visualizing things, it's pretty much as good as it gets.
Yeah. I guess so, representational models, it goes back to who.
Yeah. So I guess it's planning, but it's also showing people what it'll be like, showing people the layout.
I guess it kind of ties into sculpture as well. It's if you want to get an image or a creation out of your mind, if you want to imagine it in 3D form, then that's kind of what it is. I suppose that's where it originates from. Yeah. But I guess now it's kind of coming into. Yeah, I suppose how does digital technology affect miniatures and its use for it in the future, I suppose?
And I think that's a really interesting one because, coming from the film industry, we came at an interesting time where digital technology was really starting to come in, and that's in terms of digital manufacture. So Weta Workshop, most well known for creating a lot of the props and set work on Lord of the Rings. That was a film that used a lot of miniatures, and that was the best way to pull them off. And if you watch Lord of the Rings today, it really does still pull off a lot of those shots. But, and the big argument of using miniatures is that it's going to add a whole lot more realism to the film than just using CGI. And it's sort of the perfect reference in that it shows where the light's going to fall. It lets you create things that'll be a lot harder to do one-to-one.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that even though the technology, digital technology in terms of visual effects has progressed so much, but yet we're still very far off from real real, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's interesting that you go back and watch certain films, like you say, Lord of the Rings, and like the way that ages, it's ages so well because those shots still look good, but then you compare it to, I don't know, the Matrix or Spider-Man or something from where it's heavily using visual effects, and you're just like, oh god, this is terrible.
Well, you look at the first Transformers, and it's just this. It's pretty laughable.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's certainly the argument for that is that miniatures just allows you to
just make better images.
Yeah, make better images.
Or more convincing images. Yeah. Anyway.
And so when we sort of started in the film industry, what we were starting to see is that digital fabrication or digital manufacture was actually able to help make miniatures a lot faster and a lot better. So what we're kind of talking about that is like things like laser cutters and CNC machines,
3D printing.
And 3D printing. Yeah, for those who know all those technologies, you would have heard of 3D printing, no doubt. But there's essentially things like laser cutters, which is a laser beam that cuts out profiles out of little bits of wood. And I mean, to put it in perspective for you, before a laser cutter or a CNC machine or 3D printer, it was actually really hard to make a circle.
Yeah, or even to tie it back to in the architecture industry in London, like there was guys there who have been working there for 30 years or in the industry for 30 or 40 years, and for making like glazing, like the glass, they would literally use a scalpel and like to cut through acrylic. I don't know if many people have done that, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
Like you have to score it like 20 times, and then obviously if you make one mistake and like scratch through it, you got to start again. And your one bit of glazing is like, oh sweet, this is going to take me a week to make this glazing on this building. But now it's just literally a case of just like cut. Oh yeah, sweet, it's done, or it's wrong. And I think like it's probably interesting as well, like how that technology has both like influenced design of buildings as well. Because if you made like a super organic building, like there's no way that you could manufacture it.
No.
In a miniature scale or in a actual full building scale.
You're talking about sort of clay sculpting and moulding or whatever it might be to attempt anything like that. So I suppose, like Ewan says, there's so many builds that just wouldn't be possible without 3D technology anymore, which is an interesting thing because you've got a lot of these. I mean, this was a massive industry making miniatures, either for architectural models or for film. Like there was a lot of professional miniature makers out there, who were all using these old techniques.
Yeah,
and like all of a sudden, the skill sets had to change a little bit.
Yeah,
and like you have to actually to do it efficiently and to use those right tools, you actually have to know a lot about computers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like as I say in London, it was interesting because you have kind of old guys who like. I mean, it's the same at weddings, to be fair. They know all the tricks in the trade, and like they just have such great like material understanding and all the rest of it. But unfortunately, if you can't like run a computer, you're very much limited by what you can produce, because the industry is just so heavily reliant on that. But I think it's interesting as well. Like comparing New Zealand to London is London, there still was a very thriving industry of model makers. Like it was still a very like you go to university and study model making, and like there were a lot of architecture firms and architectural model making companies, which I don't necessarily see the same way in New Zealand. So it's kind of interesting that like I guess it brings us back to the question like, is this a trend?
Is this a dying trend?
Yeah,
is there miniatures on their last legs? But I mean that's so interesting that it's still such a predominant thing. Like you work at Foster and Partners,
and they had like like a huge it was like 40 model makers. I mean it's a big company, but it was a substantial like part of the company. But then I do wonder like, is that because Norman Foster, he's an old guy.
Yep,
he's been doing it for. He's 80 something, and he still obviously values miniatures a lot. So like, I wonder, as those older generation, die, leave working. Like, will miniatures still tangible for people of our generation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, perhaps we're a little bit biased in that we are coming from sort of a manufactured background, but I really do think there's nothing better than a miniature as far as explaining a space or
just anything really.
Just anything.
I think like there's a certain level of tangibility with a miniature which you don't get with like digital technology. But I think there's that in saying that I think digital technology could get there one day. Like it's probably naive to say that you'll never get that with digital technology, but it's just like is VR and AR. It's not quite there yet where it's as enjoyable of an experience as being like, oh sweet, here's this like awesome miniature which someone's put heaps of time and effort into, and like, you know, there's like a real artisan nature to it. Like this is a sculptural piece of art. Like I don't think you get that if you go on like a VR tour of a new building. Like do you feel that same sort of emotion?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to sort of developers or architects who are trying to communicate a concept or an idea that doesn't exist yet, a miniature can really help with that, because without something like that, it's utterly intangible. There's nothing to base it in reality, and we've heard that a couple of times from people, is that what a miniature does is it just puts something tangible in front of people, and it's a lot easier to sell off that.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden the project feels real. For whatever reason, there's actually just something that's been made.
Yeah.
You know, something physical.
I guess like when you're doing like a digital image, like there's a lot of like not forgery, kind of forgery. Like you can place things in a strategic way to only allow the camera to see a certain thing, or you can like enlarge things or mess with perspective and focus to like trick people into, you know. I think with digital images, you know, it's like things always look better than they are, maybe, or something, you know. There's like a level of gloss to them which isn't real, but maybe with a miniature you kind of, you know, it has to be fully realized to be able to make a 3D model of something. Yeah, you can do like a facade, you know, render, and you don't really need to know how the rest of the building looks.
Well, this like, I mean, when we're creating our visualizations and our renders, we basically don't make the back end of the house if we don't need to.
Yeah.
Which means we don't actually need to consider how it might attach or what the back garden looks like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you're right in that you actually do have to design these miniatures, and you have to they're fully fleshed out designs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that certainly helps.
I think as well, like you know, I think a miniature can kind of be a piece of art or a piece of sculpture in a way that, I mean, I suppose, you know, digital art can be that too, but it's all, you know, your stylistic choices. Like I remember working with the architects in London, and like there was a lot of to and fro about, you know, what materials to represent, what materials not to represent, how detailed do you go, you know, what people do you use to represent it, and like, I think you know, we made like wooden models that were really beautiful, you know, but they weren't like photo real. They didn't look like a miniature building.
Yeah.
But they were like quite they were a beautiful object in their own regard.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting too. You can actually start to introduce a little bit of a style or an artistic style with them.
Yeah.
So I guess in saying that, like, I think a lot of this digital technology, what it's basically trying to replicate is the feel of a miniature. You know, you can look online and you'll see a lot of real estate agents are using it now as like a sort of a 3-dimensional floor plan. So it's as if like you can look on your tablet or your phone and you can see, and perhaps in some of them even look around the thing as if it was a miniature.
Yeah.
But I guess what they're both trying to emulate the one-to-one real thing.
Yeah.
But digital technology is trying to give the impression that emulate that feeling of having a miniature there in front of you. So I suppose there's no real, I mean, like you say, it's getting there, but there's no real substitute.
Yeah, that's you're right. I think there's no comparison at this stage. Like you say, like you can use these AR apps on your phone or your tablet where you look through and you see like if the house was hovering on your table or whatever. But like that's not as I say, I don't think it has the same value or meaning as if someone had actually made a miniature and put it on your table. But I guess that maybe carries to the next point, is like in this digital age of share online and like mass media, does a miniature, like you can't obviously upload a miniature, you know, like for a miniature to have effect you need to be there physically in person, and like is is the world changing in a way where that's those sort of interactions and sales, I guess, I mean, that's the point of the miniature, right? Is to sell the project or gain backing for the project. Like, are these things going to rarely happen, in a face-to-face like way?
Yeah.
Because like at Foster and Partners, like they would fly these miniatures around the world. If you're on a meeting in Australia, you get on a plane with your miniature and take it all the way to Australia from London.
But these are these big one-off presentations, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, moving forward, like, would they? Obviously, that's a big cost for them. Like in the future, would they be like, shit, we can just hologram this?
Yeah.
Whole thing.
Yeah.
Because they had as well. They were working with like Google Glass and all that sort of stuff. But like, it was just so rudimentary. It didn't really. Like the cool thing was when you had a miniature with the Google Glass, like having planes fly around it and stuff. So it was like a combination of media.
Mixed media.
Yeah, it's
So I think that's a really good question to ask. Why aren't we making miniatures?
Yeah.
I mean, why we come from the film industry, architectural model making. We've been doing that, a good portion of our lives now.
Yeah.
Why aren't we making miniatures for the architectural industries and things like that? And I think it like anything at the moment, it really comes down to cost.
Yeah.
The amount of time it takes to make a miniature is
a lot.
I mean, we're talking like hundreds of hours sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, being back to Foster and Partners, like, tens of thousands of pounds on miniatures.
Yep.
So, like, that's only obviously valid for if you're building an airport or something.
Skyscraper.
But, like, even the cheapest of miniatures probably, definitely go into the thousands of dollars. But I guess, for most projects, it's just not warranted. And I guess that probably is the reason, potentially, I mean, I don't know, but that New Zealand doesn't have a thriving market. It's like maybe there's just not the size of project to warrant it. I don't know. I wonder why.
It's a tricky one, yeah. Because I think it is a great thing to have, but it also touches on what you said before, Ewan, about it's not easy to share.
No.
It's something. It can be really great if you have something like a showroom or a big one-off presentation to do, because it undeniably engages people. People love to have a miniature. The idea that you can maybe move around the furniture or whatever it might be. I mean that's something so tangible that everyone, no matter the age, can interact with.
But I think as well, like how often does anyone if you're gaining backing for a project, be that you buying a house or buying real estate or investing in real estate, like however often would you do that just via an online transaction? Like surely at some point you're going to talk to someone about that. Like if you're spending millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're going to want. So like maybe that as you say, we talk to some real estate agents and they the goal is to get the person in the office or get face to face with them to sort of wow them.
Yeah.
So like maybe it is maybe there is a room for it.
I mean, there's no doubt it makes a project look impressive.
Yeah.
If it serves no other purpose than validating your project, maybe it's still worthwhile.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that as much as digital technology has helped miniature making, it's also, without a doubt, damaged it.
Yeah. I mean, I think at Foster and Partners, it was like a museum of miniatures.
Yeah.
So like they really held like pride of place, but like they would have these massive cabinets up the side of the office, and they were just like stacked with miniatures of all these projects they worked on, and like it was amazing,
And you wouldn't get the same thing from a slideshow and a LCD TV.
But imagine a real estate agent or like an architecture firm, if they like that's a cool thing to have in your office. I mean, it depends on like how often people are coming and seeing them and stuff like that, but like there's a timeless nature to a model that there isn't to like a digital render.
I mean, it really makes me think of at Weta there's Weta Workshop, which makes all the physical items, and then there's Weta Digital, so really well known for making things like Gollum, and they basically do all the CGI. So the two divisions work pretty closely, I suppose, but it always amazed me when someone from Weta Digital came over to Weta Workshop and was just amazed. I mean, these people are the best in the world at creating CG effects and creating the most amazing characters and like locations and things like that. But them coming in and seeing something physical, they're just blown away, and they just could not comprehend how something like that was made.
Yeah.
And I guess I mean, seeing that from like a different type of artist.
Yeah.
You know, someone who still appreciates the final result, but was that blown away by a physical thing. Like, I think that speaks a little bit as far as
I think you probably get nulled to it, because we've worked in the industry so much. We're just like,
sure.
oh yeah, that's the thing that someone's made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, from an outsider's perspective, it is a bit more amazing. Yeah, well, there you go. Maybe we should be making more miniatures.
Yeah, okay.
Devising miniatures.
We just entirely have to rethink our business structure. Oh well, it's good. I mean, because this podcast is basically going to be a little bit of a learning thing for us too. So it's going to be a little bit of a keeping track of things as we explore new technologies and ideas and come across new trends. It's going to be really interesting for us to kind of look back on these things as well and say, oh wow, we thought that wasn't going to be a thing, and turns out everyone's using miniatures now.
Yeah, I think it's just us airing our ideas and our thoughts, and we're going to be wrong, but
Absolutely.
that's right.
Yep. Yeah, and like, if you have any, if there's any blaringly horrible mistakes that you've heard us speak about, then please send us a comment, and I can't guarantee you'll receive a reply, but we're going to we're completely open to hearing more about it, hearing your thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, we just want to learn. I mean, that's the thing as well. Like, we're speaking from a point. We don't fully understand the architectural model making industry in New Zealand. So I mean, I know there are places around that do it for sure. It just I remember when I got here, I was looking for a job in the industry, so I spent some time looking for around, but it's definitely not the same sort of booming industry that, I mean, London's bigger, obviously, but
But I think like that really is perhaps the future of miniatures is, I mean, it's like all these things, digital technology never completely overtakes, I mean, my favourite example is that when the computer came in, people thought that it would turn the office into a paperless environment. That no longer would you have to use paper because you've got a computer. I mean, why would you ever need to do that?
Exactly.
However, in offices, there's more paper than ever.
Yeah.
So these things always run together, and I think like that scenario that you're talking about of using AR, like augmented reality, to essentially project over a physical miniature, no matter how detailed it is. I think that, I mean, that's got to be one of the sort of ultimate version of communicating and design, right?
Yeah,
using physical and digital technology together. So I think that's where the space will head eventually, but it's got to get cheaper as well.
Yeah, and I think it's just too early days for a lot of that. Like, a lot of the technology we've experimented with in terms of AR and VR is that there's potential there, but it's just not quite at the point where it's like. The whole motion sickness thing with VR it's a big issue, like is it worth going inside your house if you feel sick after the end of it,
Yeah.
And or with AR, is it like, it's great that you're a thing, but you have to look through your 6-inch phone or whatever.
Yep.
Like these things like HoloLens and Magic Leap and stuff, that's going in the right direction. I think that's going to be a game changer. Yeah. But at the same time, the viewing window is like a little postcard,
and you've got to carry around a small tramping backpack full of batteries and stuff to actually power the unit and stuff at the moment. But if you've seen the Oculus Quest and what's coming out with that, then we are getting there as far as making that a convenient solution. But it really does come down to convenience a little time.
Yeah, and it's just such a hard technical problem. Like you got to put really high quality screens an inch away from your head, and then like. Have a computer which can process all that data like in a portable system, and then it also needs to cool itself. It's just it's just like a ramming in of like a whole bunch of really hard technical problems. Yeah,
into a tiny space.
So like those engineers that do that stuff, man, that's hard work.
Oh yeah. I thought we had a hard job. But I think that about rounds us off. But what do people say? Do they say like and subscribe? Is that a thing?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure. I mean, at the moment we probably have one subscriber. Yeah, because I haven't done it yet. Yeah. Feel free to do that, whatever that means. But we aim to bring out one of these
every week or two, I think.
Every week or two, yep. And we want to explore topics like VR and AR. We've talked a little bit about that today, and perhaps talking a little bit about 3D modeling and using sort of CAD technology, things like Revit, and what the sort of larger scope of software like that. That's the world we live and breathe. So hopefully it can be of some value to some people.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for tuning in.